Welcome to Story Players, the podcast for and by game players and developers, where we give you a little bit of a time capsule of what's going on in the games industry. And I am your host, Zachary Snader, the studio head for Wildkind, and I am joined by my lovely co-host, as always, Buddy Powell. How you doing, man?
Yo, very good. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction.
Cool. Well, I already know how you're doing because we just talked about it for half an hour. But
Yeah, we just caught up. For anyone who has been receiving these podcasts in sequential order, weekly maybe, and thinks that this is just another week. No, we skipped several weeks, at least 2 weeks, right? Or 3 even.
however, it's been a couple, man.
We just spent 40 minutes just catching up and talking about how angry I am at technology.
At driver updates.
Yeah,
Which
driver updates.
I imagine everyone could resonate with that to some degree, though.
Yeah.
Because I don't like dealing with it either. And I even have a newer machine. It kind of sucks.
I get like existentially upset about it just because of what it signifies. It just signifies like a constant march forward that I don't think is necessary at the moment, or I don't think should be mandatory. Here we are.
Dude, like 2 months ago, I was with a friend and we were just hanging out and he was watching Supermarket Sweep for some reason. Do you remember that show from the 90s?
I know the name. I don't know. Is it just like them advertising things?
Okay. Yeah. Basically, like the concept is you get 3 couples or whatever to just run around a grocery store and they like solve riddles and like.
Isn't that like what Nickelodeon did with the? It must have been like Kid Sweeps or something like that, where like they just put a kid loose in a Toys R Us and he just grabs everything he can.
I think there were versions of it.
An adult version.
Yes, exactly. It's an adult version of the kid version. And dude, the whole time we were watching, we're like, maybe this is where capitalism really reached its peak. Because you have these people running through a fake grocery store, doing product placements the whole time, and it's all advertised through the lens of a game show. It was bad.
Or is it like DVD players and stuff? Or are they getting like broccoli?
No, they're getting like Brocco brand broccoli, your favorite broccoli brand for your broccoli needs, like that kind of thing.
If I went on like a sweeps like that, whatever you want to call it, I'd at least want it to be like a Best Buy or something, or like a Walmart even at the least, so I could avoid the food aisle.
But then you'd have to like go through 5 different brands of HDMI cable to find the right one.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. You got to grab them ad hoc and just see what you come up with.
Just throw everything in the cart.
You know what that reminds me of? Calling it like mentioning the whole like dystopian consumerism angle of it. Or it just makes me think of that. Do you remember that scene in Matilda? I know this is very video game related. That scene in Matilda where they're just watching TV and there's that show on TV. I don't remember the actor's name, but he's a host of some game show where you just go into this wind tube full of money, and you get covered in glue, and you try to grab all the money that you can before they pull you out of there. And that was the game show.
No, I think that existed in real life too. I don't think that might have. Yeah, I don't think that was just in Matilda.
What do they call it? Something about getting sticky or something. Get sticky with Mickey or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, wow. I hate that.
Yeah, it was awful. It was just the trashiest thing. And then you see the trashiest version of Danny DeVito, like pre-Always Sunny in Philadelphia, just like a fake mustache and a fake hair piece laughing at this thing with a TV dinner in front of him. Matilda's awesome. Matilda's like our generation Harry Potter, but then we also got Harry Potter. It's just like it's the Harry Potter we have at home. Yeah. Spoiled for choice when it comes to magic children.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how to smoothly transition from Matilda to anything about video games. I brought it up because you were talking about the drivers thing.
Oh,
and I guess they're only really tangentially connected. It's not like super one-to-one now that I'm thinking about it, but
no, it makes sense. I
haven't had much of a soapbox to really. Well, I get loud about the video games industry quite a bit, but that's
is this going to be our first full cynical story players?
No. Well, actually, no. Okay, mine is a little bit cynical, I think.
You have a cynical topic too?
Yeah,
feel like it's not. I want to balance things naturally, but I am feeling bitter today.
All right.
ever
Do you want
since.
to go first then? I know we normally have me go first, but maybe I can shift mine a little bit depending on how cynical you are.
How cynical mine is. My
Yeah,
topics, I have a bunch listed out. So the ones that are left are a bit cynical.
that's great.
Um, but
Hit
okay,
me
this one's not
with
so bad. Yeah,
no, no,
anyone
no,
who's
no,
new to the
no, 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 no,
podcast.
no. You
No,
talk
I'll do
about
one.
what you want to talk about,
Yeah.
not
Okay.
what you
We'll do this
think fits the vibe.
For anyone new to the podcast, we usually bring topics to the table that we talk about video game related or otherwise nerd related, maybe movie industry, whatever is interesting. So this week I get to go first. Yeah, my topic is video game archival. You heard about this, right?
Okay, as in like games preservation.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, so this is
Okay,
like this could potentially be a very cozy topic. But I'm gonna spin it in kind of a critical lens because I'm interested in hearing what your thoughts are about it. So
all
basically,
right.
the topic would be video game archival and preservation is usually, I think, oftentimes associated with pirating games or just especially delisted games, games that are no longer available for purchase. I think people justify in their heads, like, if it's not available, then I just have to steal it. Like, oh, it's not on Amazon, it's not in Best Buy, it's not over here, it's not over there. It looks like I have no choice, Nintendo, but to steal this game for the sake of, and like where you steal the games from are archival sites
Hmm.
where they're trying to preserve games and they're trying to keep the history of games alive. Because there's also the other side of it where a lot of games will become delisted. Like the studios, like, we don't want to pay for rights for the music in this game anymore. We're just going to take it off the shelf. Like the original Mafia, it got taken down from Steam for a while because I think it was because of music rights. They didn't want to pay for the rights anymore. But of course, with the re-release of the remake, they put it back up there.
Hmm.
But there is this sort of like this idea with game preservationists and archivalists that it's kind of their duty and it's completely justified for them to keep these games and keep them available for everyone. You know, an older game that's not available anymore, maybe like a Nintendo game, they just don't provide it for anyone anymore. So there's like no way to play Gauntlet or whatever. I don't know if that's
Hmm.
true. Like you can't play this NES game anymore. There's just no way to buy it. There's no way to play it. It's not on their eShop. So let's turn to these archival sites. Just download a copy for myself. I'm just going to shrug my shoulders and say, I mean, it's not available anywhere else. I should be able to play this game if I want to. It's kind of like the mindset that I see. And so they do so. I think these games they're distributed, they're available online, and it's kind of put in that view of for the sake of archival, for the sake of being historical, you know, making a museum, a virtual museum, sort of. So yeah, what do you think about it? What do you think about that? Are you aware of this? Have you heard of this before? The archival part of it.
Yeah. So the people that I generally follow for industry news tend to be, I guess, relatively speaking, like outspoken about the idea of video game preservation.
Mm-hmm.
Because like some of the creators that I follow most, or I guess voices, are the folks from Giant Bomb and No Clip and kind of those intersecting circles, like the folks over at MinMax and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, basically like Danny O'Dwyer and Jeff Gersman and like Kelsey Lewin, who left but was a part of the Video Game History Foundation. And even when I was going to E3, like earlier in my career, I can't remember what the name of the organization was. It might have been the Video Game History Foundation, because there's a few entities out there that are like trying to advocate for this stuff, but like they would have exhibits showing like all of this cool stuff that they preserved, like arcade games from the early 80s and
Right.
even some of the early Atari cabinets. Yeah, so I follow along here and there. I haven't been like a direct contributor or anything, but it's kind of in the back of my mind. Like I have some 2600 games that like I would love to pass down well after my death. Not necessarily for sale, but like if those things ever become necessary for a museum or a foundation or something to archive, like I would love to support that, you know?
Mm.
But a
Yeah,
lot
well,
of the things I have aren't in like perfect quality or anything. And anyway, that's
but
specific to me. But like, yes, I'm supportive and aware.
what about like digital games, digital only games, or for example, like PT was a digital only demo. It's basically vaporware. It no longer exists unless you have a
Yeah.
console that's already installed on. And I think even in that case, it's kind of like tricky to keep it on the console.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you can't update your console. I'm
yeah,
pretty
something
sure
like
because
that.
man, I never looked this up myself, but I'm pretty sure there were people selling consoles with
Oh
PT
yeah,
installed for
for sure.
like $800 on eBay or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. And that's the thing. Like you can play that on an emulator, a PS3 emulator. You can just download PT.
Oh, you
And do you
can?
think I'm sure you can. Like there must be a way, right? If not, then there's like remakes of it in Unreal that you can play just on your computer. There's people who take the property and try to recreate it in Dreams or in another game editor,
Hmm.
game creator. But like more in that vein is kind of what I'm getting at is like kind of the more gray area. Because like yeah, preserving physical mediums like pinball machines and game cartridges and stuff. But I'm talking about like when it's digital, it can basically be distributed online for free. And
Yeah.
like maybe that's not necessarily part of the archival process, but I've definitely seen a lot of apprehension because there's like for example, I know it's at least a website and a Twitter for delisted games. Like they write an article about games that have been delisted that are no longer playable or available or
Hmm.
downloadable or
Yeah, like
buyable.
lost media.
Yeah, lost media. Yeah. And so like I guess that's more the archival that I'm thinking of because that's more of the thing I see people justifying to themselves stealing, quote unquote, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Because no, it doesn't exist, but it is being acquired despite the whatever the wishes of the publisher or something like that. Because it is this like
Hmm.
vapor kind of digital thing that people are passing around and keeping archived
Yeah.
on websites. Like I can't remember. I guess back when I was doing, um, like I was trying to get emulators and stuff to work back in the day, like for NES and stuff like that. There's the tons of virus-ridden websites where they have all the NES games and stuff just put there, right?
Yeah.
And but that's like a form of archival, right? Like some of those games they never made it to the United States. Some of those games maybe stopped. There was only like a few made at all, so you never really had a chance to spread around. And most of them are unavailable. And this goes all the way through all the console generations, not just NES. Like these websites, I'm sure have all the way up till current generation, you know. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting, like kind of conundrum because yeah, for one, it's not available publicly, like the product, the game, because it's been made unavailable by the publishers, right? Even if the developers or whatever want the game to be available, in some cases, it's just not available anymore. So in that case, do you think it's justifiable for them to find the game because they want to play it, even if it's not available anymore, like on an actual storefront, like Amazon or
Huh.
something?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of
I
gamers they feel like they're owed these things. I don't want to pick a side, and it may sound like I'm siding with the producers and stuff, the publisher, but I am curious. Yeah, let me know what you think.
Yeah. Hmm. There's a lot to break down here. I think to some degree, well, maybe let's kind of step back as far as like what a digital purchase is, right? If my understanding is correct, not a single digital purchase in the modern age has been for the product itself. It has been for a license to use the product, where the product
Mhm.
is the game. So you're essentially just purchasing a license. And that license, if my layman's understanding of EULAs is anything close to accurate, that license can be revoked at any time for any reason. Obviously, there's a lot of variance in there, and I might just be talking out of my ass. But I think that's kind of how it works at a high level, because there's been examples, including recently, like this year, of Ubisoft or EA taking games out of people's libraries that they purchased. And my understanding is that in most cases, there's no legal recourse for that.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, I remember hearing that
I
news
I
where
mean,
they changed their end user license agreement or something to clarify what you're buying.
yeah,
Like you're not buying
I
games
th-
on the Ubisoft store.
right, and it's tough as the publish. I mean, and not to like, look, I do want to have some empathy with the creators of these games, even if they are some of the biggest gaming companies in the world, because like they're trying to make money too, and I get that.
Hmm.
I just wish there was like a little bit of concession to people wanting to keep these games alive and available beyond the point where they are any kind of meaningful line item for bigger publishers. So like why couldn't there be some kind of threshold where, if the long tail of a game is at the point where EA is selling 4 copies of Titanfall a day and they don't plan on doing anything else with the license. If the license has remained dormant and they're not going to sell it off, like why not just make it available after, I don't know, at the very least some arbitrary period of time, right? Maybe it's 20 years, maybe it's 15 years, maybe even 10, I don't know. But otherwise they're just sitting on it and then you end up just hoarding IP and not doing anything with it. And for the few
Right.
people that do actually want to engage with this thing, like it would actually be meaningful to them if it were available. And the thing that is perhaps most bothersome to me with restrictions on IP over time is that people who want to do something with that IP might actually reinvigorate interest in that IP in the first place, which would then reinitiate a cycle for that thing to be commercially viable for the publisher. And I think that's where a lot of the idea of preservation gets lost is like no one on the publisher side cares because they don't see it as having any kind of meaningful financial impact to them, which is largely true. But if that's the only thing that you're looking at, then I don't know, just like why even have the thing? Why even have the thing? Like if you're not even getting commercial benefit from it, and people show any kind of desire or interest in having the thing available and they can't really have it available, like there's a solution there, which is just putting it out.
Mhm. But here's
I
the thing that
imagine, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say that something that kind of is a good example of this is Nintendo caught wind or always maybe knew about, but started taking action recently about emulation and ROMs being distributed online for the NES games.
Well,
And they started cracking down on that. Like, remember, there was like a guy. Maybe a story broke out that this guy who owned a website that hosted ROMs went to jail or
yeah,
something.
but the people, yeah, but those people did actually go a little bit too far where they were cracking like I think kernel level security in Nintendo's
Oh,
consoles, and
what
they
was
were
that?
making it like an actual security problem for Nintendo. I
I
think
see.
there are smart ways to
But
do
I also think
emulation
it.
and like
Yeah, but I think even the subtler emulation, just hosting games on their website, I think they were getting taken down too. They were getting like,
okay,
I think it was a matter of that, and the reason why I think that is because shortly after Nintendo started making a lot of moves for emulating their own games and putting
yeah, I
um,
think that was like right around the start of the pandemic is when they really
maybe, yeah.
started to do that.
And so
I
you can see
man, it
how you can
yeah.
see how even these older games that may have seemed forgotten are still interesting for and still valuable for Nintendo to the point where they would say, no, we need scarcity now because we're going to start emulating these games. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to put them on modern consoles. And they have made emulators for these older games of theirs. Or I mean, even they have like simulated consoles within the Switch or whatever on the. I don't know how it works, but but now they are able to market these older games, and they wouldn't really have been able to do that if there was a complete and utter availability of all their games. Like if everyone had Nintendo games, like there wouldn't be a reason for them, or like it wouldn't be viable for them to actually create this new emulator. Or and they also release like those mini versions of their consoles with some games on them and stuff. So that's all value that they're pulling out of their IPs, which they've made investments on at the time that they were created, and they're always filing patents for and stuff like that. So that's just an example of like NES is an old console. So like even them still having that like initiative to bring those back shows that a company or publisher, they don't necessarily just forget about things and like abandon things. When there's
Well,
demand for a thing, they'll pull it back.
sometimes.
Yeah, and of course there are examples of
Sometimes.
there are examples of games that are just completely lost, right? Like
Yeah.
we'll never see Peter Jackson's King Kong the movie, the game, like released on console again, you know? And it is
Dude, I forget.
it's a cool
That was
game.
on 360, right?
360, I think
I think that was
PS3,
one of the
PC.
first 360 games. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it was on the
Okay.
Wii even. Yeah, and it's like it's kind of it's got like a little niche following because that's an example of
What
a
a
game that was
cut.
kind of innovative. Actually, I just
Hmm.
saw a video of someone made of it recently. A pretty big YouTuber made
I
about the
think I
game.
think someone did a speed run for it at the last Summer Games Done Quick. I'm
Oh
pretty
yeah,
sure.
it's a really interesting game. It's just a cool kind of like, it's an example of like a movie tie-in that really went for game design over just like trying to follow along with the movie. And there's a lot of
Hmm.
cool ideas in there. There's a lot of like immersive simulation type things. Like you can burn grass and you can spear insects and catch them on fire and throw them at enemies. And there's a lot of like interesting mechanics in there. And it's really made the game have this like niche following. But yeah, like I said, it's just unavailable now. I managed to buy a virtual copy on Amazon, so I have a key for it, like on my Amazon account.
What the hell?
Yeah, I found like
Okay.
I think the better version to get is like the PC version that is not the gamer edition or something. Because the gamer edition has these awful graphics like changes or whatever. But anyway, like so I have a copy. I can sit pretty on my tower and say like I have a copy of this. What's the big deal? But like it is a little treasure that would be cool for people to be able to play it, but it's gonna be unavailable forever unless
Hmm.
I don't know. People are clamoring for that particular game to just be remade or something.
Yeah.
But that yeah,
Yeah, man,
that's the other side of it is like a undesirable game, an unviable game for a publisher to bring back. That'll probably
okay,
never
but
see light
like
of day again.
what Lord of the Rings Gollum, right? That game that came out, was that
Mhm.
this year? There's no way it was this year.
I think it was
Wow.
last year.
Okay. I was gonna say, oh my God, time is a flat circle and such. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Gollum was pulled. So like, if you wanted to play one of the worst video games of all time,
It got
according to
pulled?
other people and such, I believe it did. I don't think you can buy
That's
it
sad. That's
anywhere. I can look it up later. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
I
you
see what you
can't buy
mean,
it
yeah.
anymore though. Same with that King Kong game. I think that came out last year too.
Oh,
Also a
that
game that'll
thing.
join it.
Somehow
Yeah,
that got infamous. I don't know why people were paying attention to that game at all. I think it's just because it
because
had a
it
big
was
IP.
yeah, it was a big IP and it wasn't a great game.
But it looked like it was made by
Um,
students or something. So like it seems kind of mean to pick on it. Like just because they got a nice
but
IP.
I mean, yes, but also that game should still be available in some capacity at some point. To the point that you're making, like just
I guess
because
so.
that game might not be commercially viable, at the very least, I think academically, if for no other reason, academically, these games should be available. And maybe they live in some secure bucket where only people with academic credentials can access that bucket of like every video game possible that's ever existed that isn't completely lost forever.
Mm.
Like that should be a bare minimum application that developers and publishers are open to is how can we proliferate education and share teachings about the meaning of games through individual games, and each game, good or bad, still has some kind of thing that can be imparted from
Mm.
that experience. And to lose out on that just because the idea goes against commercializing everything forever for the promise of infinite growth is really ridiculous at the end of the day.
Mm.
Uh, like where do we go from here? I don't really know enough about preservation to understand that, but I think it's important for newer developers and for the current generation of developers to at least like be open to how preservation might work for their games and for their studios. But I don't know what the specific answer is. Like, how would you preserve Of Love and Eternity after its commercial
That's the thing. Like,
period was over?
one of the things we might have talked about it already together is like one of the things I do worry about with seeking publishing is that now the publisher controls the IP or controls the sale of the product, and in most cases, and so like I would no longer have control over how available the game is. Like, for example, when the game is no longer functional on Windows 12 or 13 or whatever the heck, like once the game stops working, we're no longer using 64-bit, whatever, like
Yeah.
however that stuff works, and it's just no longer playable. Like a publisher would just pull it down. It would no longer exist, no longer be purchasable or available. For me, I would just put it up there for free. I'd be like, yeah, anyone who wants to run it can, because I'm sure there's going to be open source, like crowdsourced like emulators for Windows 12 or Windows 11, to run the game, so it still works. And so like I just make that available for people, or maybe it still works on Linux or like anything like that. So like for me, it doesn't make sense to make it unavailable just because it doesn't run. Of course, like a lot of publishers, they'll take stuff down because of contracts and stuff. It runs out of contract, like music and stuff like that. And so they have to take it down, or they'll have to pay again, like a big chunk of money. Like Rockstar, they're paying so much money. Whenever their contract for music expires, they have to re-up the contract again. And if it's not worth that next span of time to pay all that money, when basically everyone owns Grand Theft Auto already, like it's not worth it for them. So they'll take it off the store. And I think that's why we saw them just completely remove the original versions from their store and replaced it with their deluxe edition or whatever, their remake. But yeah, I think there's two sides of it. When I think about it as a publisher myself, like not that I am a publisher, but when I put myself in their shoes, I think like this is something I paid to be made. It's a product that I made, and it is still mine. I have the right to distribute it however I like, even if that means withholding distribution or making strategic like relaunches or something when there's more demand for the product. Like say a Netflix TV show launches, I'll start redistributing the game because now it's worth paying for all those licenses. It's worth paying for all that stuff because people are actually going to buy it. And I still get to make money. Whereas if I just let it go for free, like I just explained what I would do with my game, I would no longer be able to monopolize. It's not the right word, but I'll no longer be able to take advantage of that sort of like that opportunity. I would miss out on that opportunity because the thing with the cat would be out of the bag. It wouldn't have any value anymore because it's everywhere already. Like it's free. It loses all value. And to something like, say I paid like $5 million to make a game, I'm not really excited about the idea of just giving it away eventually when there's still always potential for making money, especially with like throwbacks and stuff. People always doing throwbacks these days. But as a consumer, so like on the totally flip side of it, as a consumer, like I was just complaining about, like technology is just making things obsolete for no reason. Like there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to play certain games that I paid for already on the latest version of a console. Like for me, it just makes perfect sense for all my PlayStation 2 games to work on my PlayStation 5, like whatever. It should just work. But it's not necessarily possible that way. So the next best thing for me as the consumer is just to have available, like for example, a PlayStation 2 emulator that I can run on a PC or like a Linux system or something, where I can just put my old games in and they still work. They no longer, that purchase, as small as it may seem in the grand scheme of things, still is value to me. I still want to be able to play Manhunt, so I should be able to just have access to the system, because like eventually PS2s are going to be gone. Like, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because there's still NESs floating around, but I mean, accessibility for these consoles is getting lower and lower day by day, and so having some kind of archival effort like an emulator is invaluable for a consumer. So I think that's where we're feeling pulled in both directions, because there's obviously business sense that goes into this decision to control distribution of a IP, but then of course the consumer who loves the art of it and loves the product of it and is invested in it in that way emotionally, they want access to their thing they paid for, even if it was all those years ago for $60. So yeah, it's definitely like a tug of war sort of thing. I'm on the fence. I'm pretty centrist with everything, so like I'm on the fence about it. But that's why I was curious to see like where you were thinking about it. So,
yeah. I think it gets even more interesting because each publisher has their own. Each publisher and each platform holder has their own, I guess, stance methodology really on how they look at games throughout the ages. You know, like Nintendo was very willing to kill their entire eShop catalog without preserving any of it, right? And it took like YouTubers buying the entirety of the catalog for those games to be available in any kind of way. Where Sony believes in the idea of generations, right? So they don't really care about backwards compatibility anymore, because they just want to sell new exclusive titles for the generation of console in which is, currently present on the market. And then Xbox is like kind of open to partly having that Sony or the Nintendo mentality that Sony is sort of adopting of like, hey, we'll put some of our back catalog up in a subscription service, but they're also, they also have tons of backwards compatible games that you can just slot right into the current series consoles. So without there being any real unification, and with the ESA seemingly not really caring about preservation at all, there's no real impetus or market driver at the top level of the industry that would push games preservation forward. It's all coming from independent initiatives.
Yeah, it's up to the community.
Yeah, which is why I think it is. It's funny. I never really even thought about the idea of preservation for the game I'm working on, but maybe that should be baked into at least the launch or post-launch process in some way. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe an idea is like you have a performance evaluation period or something with every game, where after, I don't know, call it 5 years, you take a look at the books. Is this thing selling enough that we can either keep it listed or do some kind of big activation around trying to kickstart sales again? Whether it's a limited run release or, I don't know, something to that effect, right? Or like if we're not going to make sequels, but it still has a long tail, like do we just keep it? Or if it's not performing well, do you say, okay, here's an inflection point where we can make a decision to just release this thing, and you just give it to the Video Game History Foundation, or you put it up on a, I don't know, Mega or some site where people could just download it, or whatever the emu. Oh man, I forgot what the emu
old torrenting
something.
things.
Yeah, dude.
Pick it up on LimeWire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like maybe that's the way to do it, is developers just like have an evaluation process where they bake in the idea of preservation. And maybe there's like a certain number where you dip below I don't know, $5,000 a year, $1,000 a year, whatever it might be in total sales. And you just say, okay, like, fuck it. We're just going to put this thing out there. Cause I think like I empathize with the need to make money. We are both in positions where we need to make money on our games, but if the money is negligible, is it really worth keeping it locked off commercially when it could be made available and more people could have access to the thing?
I guess if you own a storefront, but like on Steam, you just leave your game up there, or on Itch or something, you just leave your game up there. Like it doesn't cost you anything to just let it sit there, even if it's not selling anything, right? Like there's plenty of games on there that just don't sell.
Like I guess make it free. Is that what you're saying?
I mean just leave the thing up there on available.
Oh, rather than taking it down, you mean?
Yeah. Because if you don't have like problems with licenses or something, but yeah,
that too. But like even releasing a game on Steam isn't necessarily preservation, right? I guess there's a difference in availability and preservation, because preservation is like making the thing accessible to anyone that might want to engage
Oh, I
with
see
it.
what you mean. So like
You know?
giving it to people for scholarly reasons or something.
Yeah, totally. Or just like the
Right.
equivalent of putting it in a museum or something, right?
Mhm.
Like
I
the
was
museum
seeing it.
might charge you, but it's a 501c3 or whatever equivalent. It's
I
like,
was seeing it more as like if it's unavailable for even for purchase, like it's just not available anymore. Like that's more of what I was seeing when it comes to archiving something. It's when it's just unavailable for consumers, and that's the stuff they want to make available again by saving,
uh,
like you said, saving Nintendo, all the Nintendo eShop stuff.
right.
But yeah,
But Nintendo's not going to release 1,600 games onto a service that's
exactly.
being deprecated, right? And they're not going to go
Right.
put it
Yeah.
up on Steam or whatever, right? Like
Mhm.
those games are otherwise gone, with the exception of these few people that hold in their possession those games downloaded on a machine or
Yeah.
what, however they did it, right?
So in that case, they'd have to do something. Otherwise, they're just literally just disappear
Yeah,
from.
otherwise they will literally be gone forever.
And there's some
So that's
like
the thing
PS.
is like there has to be a repository of
Yeah.
those things. That's not just another platform.
I guess it's tough because who's to say if a game isn't going to have value in the future? Like I said, some games do come back. Some games do get relaunched by the publisher, like those Nintendo games. But it is funny because like there are some that you just know aren't coming back. Like this King Kong game, you just know it's not coming back. There's like this fun little puzzle game I played on the PS3, or even like what was one of those like launch PS3 downloadable games? It was like a duck game, like a bath duck game puzzle. It was like Monkey Ball, but with bath ducks or something. And that game, I just don't think you can play it anymore. It's just gone now, unless it's up on a website somewhere. And yeah, and those are types of games I'd love to revisit, but no one is ever going to republish Bubble Bath Duck Puzzle. Like, it's just not going to happen.
I mean,
So yeah,
the thing about that though is like even those games, I don't see any issue, especially if they're like 20, 30 years old, whatever, and they don't have a lot of commercial momentum behind them. Like just put them out there because why not? Like Pac-Man, really good example, right?
mm,
Pac-Man came out for the arcades. Uh, Bandai or Namco or whichever one of them, you know, became
both.
Bandai Namco, da, 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 whatever. Like they've licensed for Pac-Man, but Pac-Man also came out on the SNES, and it was a shit version of Pac-Man, right? But like that game still came out. Now, if obviously there's a lot of complexities here with licensing, but let's say that Nintendo still had the Pac-Man for Super Nintendo license. Nintendo's already, or I don't know if it's Nintendo and Bandai Namco collectively, but like there are still Pac-Man games being released for Nintendo hardware. So like, why not have the older version of Pac-Man available because the game is still being iterated upon, right? So
Mm.
like, are you really cannibalizing your own audience if you put out this shitty version of Pac-Man for the SNES from 40, 30, whatever years ago? Or are you actually contributing to the heritage and the identity and the story of the thing? And that actually gives it more value as you go through and you build these new iterations of the IP. That's
Mm.
why I think it's really dumb for this whole idea of hoarding, especially when these studios are creating new versions of the IP still. Like why not just make the older stuff accessible as opposed to like, nope, okay, all of that, Pac-Man's dead. Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, they're dead. They died. Go play Championship Edition. Like
His
fuck you.
wife, she's dead too.
Yeah, they died. Just go play Champion Edition.
This would be my ideal like console. Just imagine a console like a Sony, like PlayStation. I guess I'm kind of thinking of like how Pokemon is, where Pokemon every generation you can bring your Pokemon over. So like
Yeah.
if I had a PlayStation 3, if I had a PlayStation 4, and on my account it knew that I owned Siren Blood Curse, Last of Us, that duck game with the bath bubbles, and I don't know what's another good PS3 game. um, Virtual Fighter 5 or whatever. It just knew I had those on my
Wait,
account, right?
that was the good PS3 game example that you brought up.
I can't think of them. They're not in front of me. I don't have them here anymore. All right,
No, that
Eco
was
and Shadow of
great.
the Colossus
Tokyo Jungle.
remastered. I
Okay,
never had
perfect.
Tokyo. Well, Tokyo Jungle is a good one because it's virtual, right? It's a virtual game.
I don't know.
Let's
I
say
thought they had a
for
physical
the
release.
sake of making me look like a cool game connoisseur, it's the Ico Shadow of the Colossus box set remaster, HD remaster. Okay.
Dude, you're such a
And
cool
now
gamer.
I have that same, yeah, thank you. I have that same account logged into my PS5 that doesn't really exist. And not that I can play those games, but if I go to my library, there's an icon for all those games just sitting on a shelf there. And that's all I need. I don't need them necessarily be playable on that console, but as long as Sony kind of remembers that that exists and it's sitting there, like, and I could go back, log into my PS3 and turn those on again. Like that's the kind of like inter-console. It's like having an Apple account. Like when you have an Apple account, all the apps you've ever downloaded are there. Like that's like an ecosystem that I think should be commonplace on consoles. Like whether or not the app runs or not. Like I don't need it to play the Bubble Duck game on the PS5 if I kind of know that it's not going to work. But if I
Okay.
just wanted to know that it's part of my history on my account. And then like in the future they can be like, "Oh, look we added an emulation app to the PS5 that emulates PS3 games." Like and it's an emulator that's like it's getting better all the time. People are and then I could just like play that little
The dream.
Bubble Duck game. I know it's a dream. That's my ideal.
But okay, but how does Sony know that your friend didn't just bring Ico plus Shadow of the Colossus physical disc release in Cool Gamers Edition from their house and put it on your PS3, right?
Well, isn't there some kind of registration or something that never happened on PS3?
I mean, it did, but not for a time, if I remember correctly, because the first
Right, I guess
iteration
there's
of
like
the PS3s were natively backwards compatible, and I don't think there was any kind of registration. But
Yeah, I guess
Blu-rays, this even happened. I think this even happened with the version of Lord of the Rings, where the disc stopped working because it was still technically like connected to the internet and it was doing some kind of like pass-through verification of like, hey, is this disc valid? I could be
It's
making
so
that up.
not.
I think that's true. But
That's
yeah, I'm
so
pretty sure that like,
anti-escapism.
right. Yeah.
How dare they remind me? I'm trying to think of hobbits and wizards and stuff, and they're
I
reminding
know.
me about the internet. Anyway, well, I think they could start doing that. PS4, they should have started doing that then, because PS4 everything was online and whatnot.
I think PS4 they did do that. Man, I'm pretty sure because
your
like
achievements are still
everything's
there.
connected online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'm just.
I mean,
old and
I have
old.
my PS3 achievements still. Like if I log into my Sony account, they're
Right.
still there.
Maybe I'm just
for like
maybe
Red
I'm
Dead
just
Redemption.
old. Yeah, I haven't owned a console since I had a PS3 back in the day. So maybe
I mean,
they're
I have a
doing things that are
PS4 and
good.
it like there are man, I also don't know if I'm making this up too. I think there are games that won't launch if you don't install the latest update to them. I'm not 100% sure if that's correct or not. But anyway, besides talking out of our asses, like I think the idea of not being able to access games that you have once played is like kind of silly if it's been, some again arbitrary amount of time to where the financial impact to the studio is negligible or
Yeah.
zero. Like just make the things available for the sake of making the things available. Because it weaves a richer tapestry of the history of games, and who knows what you can inspire in terms of creation or discussion or just the sharing of knowledge and ideas. And
Yeah.
I don't know,
It's literally a mix between art preservation and like archival, like
yeah.
legacy technology, legacy software. Like it's the reason I think why it's divisive is because video games are one, a product, and two, art. Whereas like paintings is art. It was commissioned by some Duke of Vanderburg or whatever, but it is a piece of art. It's a piece of history. I think that's why we're having such a struggle with it, because it's art, but it's
But you're selling it
dependent on
to
technology.
tens of millions of people.
Yeah, and it's also like copyable and stuff. Like artwork that exists on a computer is like this is a first for humans. I think that's why it can be so divisive. because you see it as artwork. The consumer sees it as artwork, and the business people see it as, like we talked about earlier, you're literally just paying for a license to play the game at this point.
Dude,
there's like a weird mix there.
I think with GOG, with
oh yeah, I was gonna bring up GOG.
What does GOG stand for?
Good old games.
Okay, it is good old games. All right. I'm pretty sure you can redeem a key from from a CD from like the 90s
cool.
or aughts, and you can put that game in your library. I might be speaking out of turn again. I without like looking this stuff up.
That'd be cool. Yeah. I mean, that sounds on brand for them because they're all about like you
bought the game. They have those licenses, you know.
Yeah, there's no like registration. There's no DMR. What is it called? DMR? Is that what it was called? Yeah.
DRM.
DRM.
DRM. Yeah.
Like that seems totally on brand for them. That'd be cool if that's real. Because I remember that. Remember like getting a PC game and there's like a little code on the back.
Yeah.
Type that guy in and you're just like,
remember that?
That was awesome. I guess people still do that. Like, I haven't bought a game.
What's the last? Okay, the last PC game that I bought that had a CD key, that had a CD, was Fallout New Vegas. Oh, yeah? Or was it Fallout 4? It might have been Fallout 4 actually. I think it was Fallout New Vegas though.
Yeah.
What was the last game with a CD key that you bought? Sorry, that was a tangent.
BioShock. Yeah, it's tough.
BioShock.
I've used Steam for so long, but I think I got BioShock on actual disc.
Dude, I've had Steam for almost 20 years now.
Yeah, I think my account would probably be around 20 now. I got rid of my old account and I made a new one recently. But yeah, it would probably be around 20 years old now.
Our Steam accounts are older than like a significant portion of the population in the world right now.
Man, that's so funny. And it's funny that they keep track of all that stuff with achievements and badges and stuff on Steam. Steam is
and they could just as easily do that digital shelf thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean Steam does. You keep.
That is true. That is true. We just need to get console games and all the games of all time on there.
I would love it if it worked that way. If it was like Pokemon. But yeah, honestly, like tasking a company who's already trying to make the most innovative next best thing in consoles, tasking them with also, can you please package in all your other consoles in with that same console somehow? Like tasking them with that is pretty tough. So like, and emulators aren't that great. I think emulators for older systems are pretty damn good. Like PS1, NES, PS2 maybe. But like once you start getting to PS3, PS4, and stuff like that, like it's not worth it packaging. Like, would you really want a PS4 emulator on your PS5? Like, would you really want to mess with that? You probably wouldn't want to see that side of your games, like the underbelly, all the data that's just all corrupted and stuff.
Well, I mean, that's the other part. Actually, you bring up a good point that I wanted to bring up earlier that I totally forgot, is like a lot of people just don't want to deal with emulation. And even if it is accessible, they just want to be able to play the game in an easy way. Like those new Nintendo packages, right? Which like makes sense for Nintendo, but Nintendo could still get value out of making those experiences accessible to people with natively built emulation without people having to go through this whole runaround, having to buy these mini consoles. Like there are ways that they can create more organic bridges between the new experiences and the old experiences rather than gating people out of those older experiences, shepherding them into the new ones by way of like showing them, hey, here's all the history and lineage behind this thing. This is why the experience that you're going to get now is actually such a rich product, is because it has all of this weight behind it, all of this context, all of this story. And I think it's just cooler. It's just fucking cooler. Like it's better for players, it's better for consumers, it's better for like everyone in the ecosystem at the end of the day. And like, I don't know, maybe the math on that does work out to Nintendo making a fewer dollars, but does that really matter? Like, can we just stop with the infinite growth machine for like a second?
Yeah.
Just do cool shit and also make money.
I was wondering, like, because I own Maximo, right? I own it on disc.
Maximo.
I have the original disc. Maximo, yeah. Have we not talked about Maximo on the pod yet?
Oh,
Dude, Maximo is formulative in my life. Maybe we'll bring it up someday. Um, but then, on PS3 they resold it on their eShop because they had.
Maximo Ghost to Glory.
Yeah, that's the first one. It's so tight, that
Okay.
game. It's so slick. It's such a perfect game. It's such a perfect video game.
All right.
It's very very formulative.
I don't want to.
Maybe
I don't want to get you so distracted on Maximo.
I'll bring it up sometime. Maybe we'll do it after we talk about Kane and Lynch 2. But what I was saying
wait
is
for the
like,
Kane and Lynch 2 episode.
so I wonder how much Sony made by reselling Maximo Ghost to Glory on the PS3 when it was like an old PS2 game, right? Like, how much did they really make? Like, let's be honest. How many people were really buying Maximo Ghost to Glory on PS3? Like, I bought it, but I can't imagine it was that like big a swing for them, or at least big a hit, you know? But
It's
maybe
also
I'm
been
wrong.
22 years since it came out on PS2.
Well, it was on PS3 that they re-released it. So
Oh,
it would have been,
sorry, on PS3. Okay.
yeah, it would have been however many years after that, which was probably still 10 years. But yeah, it's just funny to think about because they do it. Like they grab these obscure games and they do bring them back when they see demand. It is rare, right? Catalog is pretty small, I think, even on current day consoles of those classic games. But I don't know for sure. More talking out of our ass. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's an interesting thought piece, I guess, thought experiment. I don't think there's a right answer or wrong answer. I think people are just going to
There's
find
really not.
what's most comfortable for them. And in a lot of cases, like there's a huge community around creating emulators and making sure that their games still work, even if it's on the computer, right? Yeah, and archival, like you said, like actual putting stuff in museum situations, keeping hardware and stuff alive.
Dude. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there should be an option, like a good option that is universally available to developers and publishers. And I don't know, maybe the Video Game History Foundation can figure that out, or the ESA is not going to because they don't actually really care about game developers all that much. But yeah, maybe there's like, hey, has your IP existed for over 20 years or already netted, I don't know, $1 billion? Consider not trying to churn it out into a Disney-ified product.
At the same time, though, I kind of don't mind it being in the hands of the community. Like this effort is community driven. If it was something like legislative that the companies had to do, it's still going to be kind of slimy.
No, I don't necessarily want it to be legislative, but I want it to be like some kind of formal system in which they can opt into, and it is a partnership with a representative of the community, like VGHF or whoever it might be. You know,
yeah, maybe in the future we'll see them kind of rise to a higher power like that, where they're making, like, what if they do some kind of collaborations with Good Old Games or with Steam or with, because like it's important for consumers to know that the things they're purchasing are the things they think they're purchasing. That's why it was such a big deal when Ubisoft was just like, oh, by the way, you're not buying games on our storefront. Whereas like Steam, I remember, at least this was probably 5-6 years ago, 7 years ago, where I remember hearing about Steam being like, yeah, if Steam ever shuts down, you'll have the ability to download and play all your games. I don't know how true that is anymore, but then on the other side of things, GOG has always been saying that you can't put a game up on Steam unless it can be freely downloaded and freely played, free of any connection to the internet. Well, not downloaded, but played without any connection. And so maybe there'll be some sort of like something will come because there's demand there. People do want to save these games. They do want to make sure these things don't get lost to time because it is very sad. It's like such a sad. It's like I remember hearing about anime preservation, and there's just some anime that like are just being rediscovered and stuff. Like people found them in like a garage somewhere, and they're trying to recover it, and they're trying to like restore the and it's stuff it's stories that people told, even if they didn't become famous after. But in some cases, it is like the guy who made Astro Boy or something. Maybe he worked on something earlier on, and this is his first works or something like that. But even then, it's like, this is something someone poured like months or years of their time into. It's a story worth telling. It's a story worth hearing. And and they're pulling that stuff out of the ashes or out of like, the back of some trailer and restoring and putting it online. I think that's similar to how video games are being archived as well. They're trying to find these like digital games and just keeping them like playable, keeping them available. They don't get lost to time. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that change is gonna have to come from the ground up, though, man. I don't think.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. I'm excited to see. I like hearing about the news. Like, there's always news about this stuff. Like people finding new things, or finding old things that haven't been found before, or there's a lot of people also like localizing games that are like continent locked, like stuck in Japan or something.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool stuff like that going around where you can now play. The heck is that game called? Professor Slump, I think. It's like some Akira Toriyama.
That's a great
property.
name.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was only available in Japan, and now you can actually play a fully translated version of it somehow. I don't know how, but it's available now. It's cool. Yeah, because I'm sure it's a cool game. But yeah. Sheesh, I didn't know that topic would go that long, but that's cool.
Yeah. It's all good. My son actually just woke up, so we won't be able to go into my topic. But I think we got some good meat off of them bones.
We'll save it till next week. Yeah, and a lot of good bonus content for the patrons.
Yes, tons of great bonus content
for the beginning. Yeah, who don't exist yet. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe we'll utilize some of this. We can scrap some of this stuff.
Patrons of future past. Yes, totally.
All right, man.
Patronage archive. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps us for this iteration, mostly because because I do have to go get the baby.
The child is awake.
But yeah, I think I am actually really happy you brought it up, man, because like it's not a topic that's really prevalent in the overall games discourse, but but it's still like, it's popping its head in to say hello here and there.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about, easy to overlook. Like, games are coming out every day, hundreds, thousands of games every day. It's easy to just say like look forward to the next best thing, but honestly, some of the best games ever have already been made.
Yes, true. But
Kane and Lynch 2,
there's still going to be lots of course. Kane and Lynch 2, greatest game of all time. God, we really should just do a deep dive on that one of these days. About your interest. Okay, I did want to give you and possibly anyone else interested some homework, which is to check out all of the archival footage that NoClip has been putting up. They got like thousands of VHS tapes from
heard about this
E3 presentations and like demos,
old E3 presentations and stuff.
It's so cool, man. They actually have their own archive.org like website-ish kind of thing where you can go through and like look at all the different versions of everything, and they have it all like categorized. It's super, super cool. I think you would really like it. I'll try to find the link and send it to you.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
But awesome. That'll be a show. So if people wanted to keep an eye on what you're up to, buddy, where should they go?
Yeah, I'm online at Acornbringer, ACORNBRINGER, on Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, Pinterest, Tumblr, wherever I can manage. Most importantly, though, I'm on Patreon. If you'd like to support the project I'm working on, which is Of Love and Eternity, you can head on over there and check it out and see maybe that might interest you. I post there mostly weekly, development updates and stuff like that. Now that I'm talking, I'm wondering, will this episode even be up before the game is launched? Because we don't have any plans at this juncture. We don't have plans for releasing episodes yet. This is just an experiment.
Hey, we don't know. Let's plan as if it will. It's okay.
I feel like I'm talking into the abyss or whatever. But anyway, it's good.
Well, I mean, yeah, everyone is. It's just sometimes people listen from the abyss.
That's so profound. Man,
we're all swimming in a sea of darkness.
I don't need this. I just saw the Elden Ring DLC. I'm all like nihilistic and stuff. The trailer made me all nihilistic.
No, don't watch anything for it. Just go into it completely
I watched
blind.
it, but I won't watch anymore. Yes.
Okay.
I won't.
All right.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Join join the squirrels. Join the acorn bringers. What do you call your?
No, we don't have a name.
Individual.
Join the acorn wolves. We'll join the wolf pack. I don't like that stuff.
Enjoy the score
No, yeah,
pack.
check it out if you like Of Love and Eternity. There's a demo out, and find my stuff. Yeah, and where
Cool.
can people find you?
Yeah, we're actually posting stuff for our studio, which is really fun. It's a little bit here and there. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn person officially now, I think. I don't know how to feel about it still. A little bit of self-loathing, but also I am trying to just bring valuable discourse. So you can hit me up at Zachary Snader, Snader, on LinkedIn. And our studio handles are at Wildkind Creations. Wildkind Creations on Instagram and TikTok are the ones we're doing the most right now. Going to kind of play around with YouTube and Twitch in the nearish future. So yeah,
awesome. You don't want to hop on Twitter for me?
Fuck Twitter the most. I'm following you there, and that is the. I think the last 5 things I've retweeted are your post.
Thank you. Well, I'll check you guys out on Instagram anyway, because I just realized I'm not following you yet. I haven't heard this news.
Yeah, I'm just kind of done with Twitter. I think there's too many actual Nazis in my feed now for no reason, and I'm just like, what the fuck, dude? This sucks.
I have such a
It just sucks
Twitter.
to log on.
That's
great,
experience.
man.
Yeah, I'm sad to see it go, honestly, because I was really enjoying Twitter for a few years.
Dude, I still see cool game stuff, and then it's like, oh, women shouldn't be able to have rights, and it's like, well, the fuck, man. I mean, obviously it's not that direct, but like,
right.
It's not that far off.
Yeah, look up Wildkind Creations. Look up Wildkind Creations on Instagram and TikTok.
Yes.
I'll have to check that out too.
I recently, Ezekiel and we walked through a tunnel the other day. Yeah, and I was like, oh, the acoustics in here are so nice. So I started singing the Halo theme. And my brother DM'd me. He's like, you are so tone deaf. I'm like, hey, man.
What?
Hey, just because I'm not a great singer doesn't mean I can't sing.
He heard you from the tunnel?
No, he watched the video.
Oh, you made a video. Oh.
Yeah. Sorry. I made a video, and he...
Damn, I thought you made contact.
Yeah, he commented on it. No. No, I didn't yell 1,000 miles across the United States.
So that's on Instagram right now, you singing. On
TikTok, at least. Yeah.
Awesome.
And me poorly playing the intro to the Outer Wilds theme song.
Nice. I'm excited. I've never seen you leaving an impression on social media before. I mean, I've never seen you on social media.
Yeah.
It's fun to see
dude,
you in the limelight.
I was a Twitter person when I was doing collegiate esports stuff. And then I got death threats, and then people I worked with got death threats. Yeah, I mean, I was working with,
it's like first-person shooter
kids.
people, right?
Oof, boy. Look, I love the people that work at Epic, and there's some cool people in the Fortnite community, but there's a lot that are very not also.
I mean, it's all 14-year-old boys as far as the eye can see in the games industry.
There's a lot of 22-year-old, 14-year-olds over there. Put it that way.
It's tragic.
But yeah.
Anyway, that's not the note we want to end on. Yeah, Wildkind Creations.
No. I'm trying to actually do. It's fun to do stuff on socials. It turns out. Yeah.
Awesome.
If you don't care about the number going up,
Yeah, I'll check it out. You'll get at least one more from me.
Oh yes, sweet. All right, cool, man. Well, this
thanks a lot. It's been great. It's good to catch up again.
Likewise, man. I'm gonna stop the recording.